Hello, Texas Values supporters. I'm Jonathan Covey. Happy Friday. With me is Mary Elizabeth Castle, our Director of Government Relations, and Megan Benton, our Strategic Policy Analyst for our last Friday update. And we made it, folks. The 89th Texas Legislature wraps up on Monday. This is June 2nd. And this, at least for now, this is going to be our last final weekly update. It's been a session that's been filled with, lots of debates, lots of passion, big decisions, a whole unique air, I would say, among leadership of cooperation that we don't always see up here. And, whether you've been concerned about protecting parental rights or improving choices for education or ensuring our religious freedom, this session has given us a lot to talk about. And while not every bill has crossed the finish line, and some did cross that left us scratching our heads, there's no doubt that the Texas legislative session and the process remains one of the best in the country because thousands of people like you, y'all stay involved in the process, and you never give up on rejecting leftist ideals and making sure that Texas stays a pro-family state and a pro-faith state for future generations. So we want to thank you for everything you've done for us. And it's an honor to be able to give you this last update. I'm going to go, first of all, over to Mary Elizabeth Castle, our Director of Government Relations, and let her share some good news and some things that have happened this week with you at the Texas Capitol. Mary Elizabeth.
Thanks, Covey. We're just going to review some things that happened since our last update. We gave you a good update on Sunday on things that happened over the weekend and last week, but since our Sunday update, there have been many bills that have progressed. And so we'll just go over some of those. Senate Bill 13, which is the bill that protects kids in public school libraries and ensures parental rights in the process of selection of library books, did receive its vote in the Texas House. We were very happy about it advancing. It had a very healthy debate about the different books that are in school libraries. But just to clarify that this is a clarifying bill from HB 900 last session. So you may remember that certain parts of that bill did not go into effect. And that actually confused a lot of school districts about what they were supposed to do next. So this bill clarifies everything by having a good standard and definition for what books should not be in the libraries, but also creating a clear process. We saw a patchwork of school districts doing different things in order to address the inappropriate library books. Some schools had an effective process, some just kind of, it was all over the place and not very effective. So this bill will also clarify that process by having different councils review these books and just giving schools guidelines for what they should do in regards to this area. Also, on Tuesday, we had some major bills being voted on. First, Tuesday, early afternoon, HB 100 received its vote in the Senate, which makes it close to being signed by the governor. So that bill, as we've explained, is a bill that just returns the authority back to the State Board of Education to select textbooks for school districts. So it's a common sense bill because before 2011, the State Board of Education had the duty of choosing the education standards for students, but also choosing the textbooks that aligned with those standards, which makes pretty good sense. But since a certain bill that happened back in 2011, the State Board of Education has only had the power to recommend books to school districts. And so what that means is that many vendors and publishers who submit bids, they don't even have to be reviewed by the State Board of Education. And sometimes they don't even have to meet 100% of the TEKS, and they're going into schools and selling their materials, or schools are themselves reaching out to different vendors that align with a certain ideology and not sticking to the TEKS and the standards that the State Board of Education chose. So having this just be a common sense that, the same board that spends, months reviewing the TEKS and voting on the TEKS is the same board that chooses the actual instructional materials that aligns with those TEKS. So we're very happy that that's headed to the governor's desk. And then a lot later, several hours later, HB 229, the Women's Bill of Rights by Representative Ellen Troxclair, was voted on in the Senate. So that is headed to the governor's desk. We're very excited about this law because it sets the framework for protecting women's privacy, opportunity, and spaces. Having that clear definition in law and making sure that when it comes to these anti-discrimination type policies that you see in different cities, you see in school districts a lot of times, that identity will not be applied in just the correct definition of male and female, which could mean a lot of great things in protecting women. When it comes to sports, which we're thankful that we have our laws on sports, opportunities, and when it comes to spaces, because as you remember, that was the huge rub in the last presidential administration when the Biden administration tried to rewrite Title IX by redefining sex. So no more, and it's going to be clear in law in Texas. So very happy about that. Very happy with our partners like Riley Gaines, Independent Women's Network, and so many others who helped get that across the finish line. Thankful to both authors, Representative Ellen Troxclair and Senator Mays Middleton, for carrying that. And forgot to mention also thanking Representative Terry Leo Wilson for her work on HB 100 as well. But those are some things that happened after our Sunday update and happened early in the week.
Thank you, Mary Elizabeth. Yeah, Megan Benton, our strategic policy associate, she was also involved in this fight and had a particular role in one of the bills that ended up passing. Megan, you would tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this week, I'm pleased to announce that Senate Bill 1233 did pass third reading in the House, which means that it is on the way to be signed into law. And this is a really special bill for me because as soon as I read it, I was reminded of my family's own personal story of something that happened to us. And what this bill does is it ensures that parents receive information about passionate care options. If they have a baby that possibly has a condition that could be life-threatening. And so what this bill does is it protects a lot of parents from being put in a position where they don't think there are any options available to them. And sometimes even worse than just being hopeless, a lot of doctors will try to push abortion and say that there's no other option. And that's what happened to my family. And thankfully, my mom said, no, absolutely not. And my brother was born perfectly healthy. But that can happen to other families, and I don't want to see that happen again. And so, what this bill does is it ensures that doctors are required to share passionate care options with patients, which protects babies and it protects families in the state of Texas. So, very thrilled about this bill. I got to testify on it in the House and the Senate. It was just an incredible opportunity to share that story with the legislatures and really just drive home the point that these are real families that are affected by these kinds of bills. So very happy to see that bill moving forward and excited to see what comes from it.
Thanks, Megan. Yeah, very exciting to see that bill, as well as other pro-life bills that made it. We mentioned before Senate Bill 33. But as we also are looking at some of these bills, not everything did make it, and not it was not all roses and Kool-Aid. We actually ended up having some bills that were good conservative priorities, were good bills that really should have gotten done and were on track to be done, and they didn't end up being accomplished. And we certainly are going to have to look back on that and consider why. But I'll mention a couple of these. One is a bill that we've talked about for many of our weekly updates and have mentioned it, various times throughout the session, and that is Senate Bill 18. This is a bill to ban drag queen story hour in public libraries. And of course, this was a bill that Senator Hughes put forth, and it made it all the way through the Senate. And it went through the House committee, and it got up to calendars in the House, and then it stopped, and it never received a floor vote, and never received a date to get on the floor from the calendars committee, and no real explanation as to why. This was a great bill that really could have used being codified in law in order to protect kids from these harmful, sexualized, and radical drag queen story hours. So, that's certainly a casualty of this legislative session. The other thing I wanted to mention was SB 2880. This is a great pro-life bill that we've talked about many times. This would have banned chemical abortions. And in effect, it would have put liability on chemical abortion drug manufacturers, to make sure that they are not giving out these dangerous drugs in Texas, to make sure that we're protecting women from having access to those types of drugs and having chemical abortions, which now is the biggest form of abortion here in the state of Texas. This bill would have closed up all that, and it would have been a great pro-life bill to get done this session. It's needed, certainly it's critical, and it just didn't end up happening as well. It came out of House committee and then seemingly got stuck in between House committee with paperwork and the calendars committee, and ended up not making it to calendars and not getting set for a floor vote as well. And again, once again, no real understanding or explanation of why that happened, but certainly another casualty of the process. So we'll continue to do investigation on that. I did want to mention to you something, though. We have a non-legislative sort of victory that we wanted to throw into this update just for you, just as a bonus, because it happened this week. You may remember Texas Values past work with the city of Odessa. We tried to help them, and we worked to get a strong Privacy Act put in place. And we did help them vote and put this strong ordinance in place to protect women in restrooms. Well, just this week, there's a new Odessa City Council, and just this week they decided to schedule to have a public hearing on the ordinance that we helped them put in place, and to possibly make changes to that ordinance or to repeal that ordinance. So our president, Jonathan Saenz, who's our attorney here at Texas Values, headed up there. And when he got up there and he was armed with constitutional law facts, the new mayor of the city of Odessa made an announcement at the beginning of the council meeting. And they said that they would put a motion and table any action on repealing or amending that current ordinance. And they did that, and the motion was approved, which means that the current ordinance that was in place that we helped with, it stays in place. It stays in effect, and it's going to be protecting the citizens of Odessa. So this is a fantastic victory, which means that the city of Odessa has the strongest Privacy Act ordinance in the state of Texas right now, and their citizens are protected. So we just wanted to throw that in as an update on something else that happened this week and give you a little bit of information on that. And that does close out this last update for the 89th Texas Legislature. We just want to say from all of us here on the policy team, it has been a true honor and just a genuine honor to share in the fight with you, and receiving all of your prayers, receiving all of your support and your encouragement, and yes, even your financial backing. So remember that government belongs to those who show up, and we are honored, always will be honored, to be your boots on the ground for these issues of faith, family, and freedom. So God bless you, and God bless the state of Texas.